Well, why is he writing to them? He is concerned. He is concerned about their response to persecution. He is concerned about their response to danger, to difficulties. He cares. He wants them to not only come through it and survive, he wants them to flourish. To flourish. Consider it all joy, my brethren, when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance. And let endurance have its perfect result. Why? Why? Why should I go through endurance? Why should I go through difficulties? Why should I go through the fire? What's it all about? Here it is. That you may be mature. The word perfect means mature. That you may be mature, like an acorn becoming an oak tree. Grown up, fulfilled, that you may be perfect and complete and lacking in nothing. He wants him to grow. That is the heartbeat of James. That is his passion. Let endurance have its perfect result, so that you may be mature. You see, my number one problem, your number one problem, is immaturity. That's it. Our problems have a common cause. It is spiritual immaturity. I think of me naturally. I want my way. I want my needs met. I am naturally selfish. And so were these people, and James knew it, and James knew that God would use these difficulties in their lives to make them Christ-like, to transform them, to change them. And that's why he writes. Because mature Christians are happy, productive Christians. Not only James, but all through the Bible this is talked about. God has two books back to back. Right before James is the book of Hebrews. It's a little longer than James, 13 chapters. James has 5. And the passion of the book of Hebrews is the same. It is perfection. Now, when we use the word perfect, God's not talking about sinless perfect, because nobody here is there. He's talking about maturity. He's not talking about an absolute perfection. I might ask you, well, how's your car running? Oh, my car's running just perfectly. But we might put it on diagnosis and whatever, dialysis, and check it, and we find out, no, it's not perfect, But to you, it starts, it runs, it's perfect. So it's not an absolute word. It is, and in Hebrews 6:1, it says, let us go on to perfection. Hebrews 6:1. Spiritual growth is not automatic. If it was, God would not be having these letters in the New Testament calling on us to grow, exhorting us to grow, exhorting us to move on from where we're at spiritually. Not everyone who grows old grows up. Some people in September 2010 are going to be right where they're at spiritually today and no more. Or even less, sad to say. Well, I'm 1 year older. I know. Have you grown up? That's God's passion. That's God's burden for you. That you would not only know Jesus, but that you would be in a dynamic relationship with him. That your relationship with Jesus a year from now, September next year, would be far greater than it is today. This is how he begins. he begins by saying that you may be mature. That you may be mature, complete, lacking in nothing. And he goes on to say, blessed is the man who perseveres under trial. That's what he wants, for he knows that these people have an opportunity to have the blessing of God upon them. In spite of all circumstances, they can have the blessing of God upon them. And I want you to know, you might be saying, well, Pastor Carl, you don't know my situation. I'm in a difficult marriage, or I'm in a difficult situation where I work. I have this health problem. I've had this financial setback. I've lost my job. I want you to know, through the circumstances, you will find that God is working in your life to take you to a whole nother level and to bless you. Just because you've received Jesus Christ as your personal Savior, that's not the end. That's just the beginning. That's just the beginning of a wonderful journey with Jesus Christ. And that's what he is writing about. These people are going through a time of suffering, danger, difficulties. But throughout the Bible, I find that people are turning defeat into victory, trial into triumph. And they are not victims, they are victors. Wow. It's so awesome. It is so awesome to be a victor, to conquer in spite of the odds. 7 years ago, I ran my first marathon. I had read a book about marathoning, and I got halfway through the book, and I just closed it one day and laid it down on my desk, and I said, that's it. Before I die, I'm going to do that. And I was really naive. I didn't know. I just heard about a marathon in Kansas City, and I have a sister who lives in Kansas City. I said, well, that'll work. I'll go stay with my sis and run that marathon. I don't do it that way anymore. Now I check the elevation charts. Kansas City, oh my lands, it's full of hills, downtown Kansas City. It's enough to run 26.2, but when you throw in a bunch of hills, it's a killer, man. It's a real killer. And they have the infamous Hospital Hill in downtown Kansas City. Honestly, I think it's 8 blocks long. I thought I was going to die. And it's just unbelievable, the hills. And so I'm running this marathon, and in those latter miles, I made this promise to myself. I made 2 promises. I said, okay, I will finish. I mean, I was really hurting. But I said, okay, I will finish. If I have to crawl on my hands and knees, I will finish. I'm going to cross that finish line. Number 2, I will never be so stupid as to ever do anything like this again. And I made those 2 promises to myself. And I just kept chugging, and finally, there it was, a couple blocks ahead, and it was uphill. But when I crossed that finish line, I call it the finish line feeling. I had something, a feeling come over me I had never had in my life. It was the most incredible thing. And I mean, it was an emotional experience. And it, you know, and so I forgot that second promise, and I've run 24 races now, and this next month will be my 14th marathon. And why? It is that finish line feeling.